Albert Pike wrote a letter about the World War One, World War Two, and World War Three scenarios and how they would have to pan out and play out for worldwide globalization takeover. And he predicted 30 years before World War One happened that World War One was going to happen and how it happened. It played out exactly how he wrote it down to happen. And Albert Pike today, who was a Confederate, and you know how you Americans are so upset today with your Confederate flag, that man who created World War One and World War Two is being worshipped today inside the Mason Lodge inside of Washington, D.C., and he is the only Confederate buried today in Washington, D.C. So if you don't like the Confederate flag, then you should demand that the Masons remove his body, because you want to go around today pulling up ex-generals such as Mr. Forrest that you all pulled up last week. How about you go out and get Albert Pike out of the Mason building there? And maybe Washington, D.C. would be a little bit less cursed.
Wow, that's very interesting information. I just want to get back to Israel. There's something I think I should say. There's called The Prophecy of Jubilees by Rabbi Judah ben Samuel. And he was a rabbi who lived in like the 1200s. He died in the year 1217. And he said in his article that the Turks, the Ottomans, would take control of Israel. He was talking in Jewish years, but translated to our years, he said they'd have it at 1517, and they did. And they kept it for 400 years until 1917, near the end of World War I. That's when British General Edmund Allenby walked into Jerusalem on Hanukkah.
Let me hold you. Let me hold you right there. This is important.
Yeah.
You just said that they took it over and it stopped in the 1900s during World War One.
It did. They had it from 1517 to 1917, 400 years.
And didn't I just say that World War One was a silent war that nobody knows what actually happened? And yet yes. it was a complete overthrow of the Ottomans. The Ottomans yes. were Turks. And they took over Jerusalem. And you wonder why that stopped? It's because of World War One. Because of America dominating the Ottomans and putting the final blow into their head. But continue. I just wanted to add that piece in there, that people understand why the Turks lost it in the first place. That they had Jerusalem for 400 years and they lost it. Now it's multicultural there.
That's right. No, that's exactly right what you said about World War One. In any case, Israel was partially given to the Jews in 1948, and they got the rest of it in 1967. So remember, 1917 to 67, that's another 50 years, and that was in the rabbi's prophecy. That's when Israel was fully united as the country it is today, by and large. So this prophecy is important. It does tend to play out, not in exact ways that we would think, but if you look at dates and if you have a little bit of biblical understanding, you can see that prophecy does play out. So it's going to be very interesting, because the next 50 years is the year 2017, i.e. 2 years from now. So we should all be watching Israel then and see what happens then. It could be very, very big.
But this year is the year of Jubilee, huh?
Yeah, that's a separate prophecy. That's a separate about the Jubilees. This is the prophecy about from Rabbi Judah ben Samuel about Israel. But yeah, the Jubilee is this year. This year's the 50th year, but it's not. It doesn't quite sink in with what I just said about Israel.
No, but I understood what you're saying. But also, recently there was another high rabbi that passed on in Israel, and he made a prediction about the last president, that when he died, that Jesus would return shortly after he died, which is quite scary for a rabbi to say, because he actually acknowledged Jesus. But it would also fit into that generation shall not pass before they see Jesus.
Yeah, well, shortly after, it could be a decade, it could be, it doesn't have to be straight away. So we'll just see how long it does take, really.
Well, I don't know how many. Well, let's see. 1947, 50 years, it'd be 1997, and then another 15 years on top of that, 18 years. What are we looking at? Like 68 years now? Roughly?
Oh, I see. You're talking about the generation won't pass before Jesus comes back after Israel's established. Yeah, just from 1948, and a generation could be 120 years, and that'll be 2068. That's the maximum a generation is, 120 years. I've studied this and found that out.
Well, then a quick summoning up, 67 years ago, we now have a rabbi that predicted that after the last president died, that it would be very soon. Jesus returned. We have the biblical prophecy that Jesus will return shortly after the nation is reestablished. We have now that this might be the last pope. We have worldwide earthquakes going on right now of great magnitude of 7.9 recently in Nepal. We have animals dying out on the shorelines. We have birds falling out of the sky. We have water right now actually turning to blood worldwide. We have very weird storms going on right now. And we have blood moons that are taking place, and a lot of biblical things are happening